Jai Radha Madhava Jai Kunda Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Giri-varadhari Jai Giri-varadhari Jai Giri-varadhari Jai Giri-varadhari Jashodanandana Jai Brajajana Ranjana Jai Brajajana Ranjana Jashodanandana Jai Brajajana Ranjana Jai Brajajana Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Kunda Bihari Jai Kunda Bihari Jai Jamuna Tira Banachari Jai Kunda Bihari Jai Kunda Bihari Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Bhakta Binda Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gauda Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Rama, Hare Rama, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Krishna Krishna Hare 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 Rama Jayam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Purivrajagacharya Ashtatara Saraswamachala Abhay Charanarabhina Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Shamaveta Gaur Bhakta Vindagi Jashishinitai Gaur Shrinata Pramanandi Hari Bol Bande Aham Shri Guru Shri Jutapada Kamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavam Shri Rupam Jagad-ātma Sahagana Mitang Tang Shajivam Sataitam Shavadutam Parijana Shaitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shibishakang Vidangscha Mantra Guru Ajota Shika Guru Gontar Charane Yage Koriya Bandhan Bancha Kalpa Turubiyashta Kripashin Devacha Putitanam pavanebbo vaishnavebbo namo namaha. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaudavani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shandavari Pashtata Desha Tarine Dharma Projita Kaitava Atra Panama Ninamat Sananam Satam Vedam Vashnama Atavashtu Shivadam Tapatrai Unmulanam Srimad Bhagavatam Hamune King Vaipara Ishra Sadaridi Avarujjate Atra Kritibi Shviktakshanat Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Shavaiyam anugīta-sat-katho Savai ayam anugīta-sat-katho vedeṣu guhyeṣu cha guhya-vādibhiḥ vedeṣu guhyeṣu cha guhya-vādibhiḥ ya ekaḥ jagad-ātma-līlayā ya ekaḥ jagad-ātma-līlayā sṛjaty tatra sajjate sṛjaty tatra sajjate savai ayaṁ anugīta-sat-katho vedeṣu guhyeṣu cha guhya-vādibhiḥ ya ekaḥ jagad-ātma-līlayā sṛjaty tatra sajjate. Please chant. Matri Mandali. He, by, also, ayam, this, sakhi, oh my friend, anugīta, described, sat-kathaḥ, the excellent pastimes, vedeṣu, in the Vedic literature, guhyeṣu, confidentially. Cha, as also. Guhya-vādibhiḥ, by the confidential devotees. Yaha, one who. Ekaḥ, one only. īśaḥ, the supreme controller. Jagat, of the complete creation. Atma, Supersoul. Līlayā, by manifestation of pastimes. Sṛjati, creates. Avati, atti, also maintains and annihilates. Na, never. Tatra, there. Sajjate, becomes attached to it. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada ki. Our dear friends, here is that very personality of Godhead, whose attractive and confidential pastimes are described in the confidential parts of the Vedic literature by his great devotees. It is he only who creates, maintains and annihilates the material world, yet remains unaffected. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. It is stated in the Bhagavad Gita, all the Vedic literatures are glorifying the greatness of Lord Sri Krishna. Here it is confirmed in the Bhagavatam also. The Vedas are expanded by many branches and sub-branches, by great devotees and empowered incarnations of the Lord, like Vyas, Narad, Shukdev Goswami, the Kumaras, Kapil, Prahlad, Janaka, Bali and Jamaraj. But in the Srimad Bhagavatam, especially, the confidential parts of his activities are described by the confidential devotee Shukdev Goswami. In the Vedanta Sutras or Upanishads, there is only a hint of the confidential parts of his pastimes. In such Vedic literatures as the Upanishads, the Lord has expressively been distinguished from the mundane conception of his existence. His identity being fully spiritual, his form, name, quality, and paraphernalia, etc., have been elaborately distinguished from matter, and therefore he is sometimes misunderstood by less intelligent persons as impersonal. But factually, he is the Supreme Person, Bhagwan. And he is partially represented as Paramatma or impersonal Brahman. Srila Prabhupada ki. Mukam karadi vachalam pangam langai degirim chakrapa tamaham bande Shri Gurum dinatarinum Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. Being in Gauramondo, as Narottam Thakur sings that Shri Gauramondo Bhumi Jeba Jane Chinta Moni. Gauramondo. Now is very wonderful time of year because I take bath in Maganga, and the gut is, you can't see the gut. Maganga, she's up close to the road, so there's Goswami Ghat. Usually you walk down the path. And then now there is no Goswami Ghat. It's all underwater, submerged within Maganga. But the path is still there, so you just walk down the path and then you just enter into Maganga. And there's all reeds and trees, and it's a very special time of year. So what I'm reflecting on is the mati, the mud. You know, the path is all mud. I like to go barefoot, and you feel the bhumi, Gauramondo bhumi, the same bhumi that touched the lotus feet of Gauchandra, Shachinandan, Vishwambar, Dvijamani, as he was wandering here and there performing his pastimes. That same mati, that same mati. We can walk. So Gauramondo bhumi, bhumi means the earth. Gauramondo bhumi, Jaiba Jane Chintamani, is spiritual. It's according to Narottam Mahashaya. It is spiritual. Chintamani means desire fulfilling. All your desires, spiritual desires, can be fulfilled just by touching the mud of Navadip. It's spiritual. And it extends, just like so many extraordinary pastimes. Prabhupada was born, his Gaur-mandal extended to Kolkata. There's also Gaur-mandal. Gauda Desh. It's special. In Puri one time, Shri Gaushundur, he called Nityananda Prabhu. He said, don't come to Jagannath Puri every year. The Gauda Desh, Bhaktagan, they came every year. And then Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami, he describes in great detail the first arrival of Gauda Bhaktagan. And then in great detail, 4 or 5 chapters of Chaitanya Charitamrita, the Ratha Jatra Anushthan, Gundi Chamarjan, and all the pastimes. With the Gauda Bhaktagan, it's 4 or 5 chapters. The South Indian tour, 1 chapter. That's 2-year period. 1 chapter. The 30 days from Rath Yatra to the end of, Snan Yatra to end of Rath Yatra is 4 or 5 chapters. So much detail. It's so special. Mahaprabhu's association with Gauda Bhaktagan in Jagannath Puri, Nilachal Dhame. So he calls Nityananda Prabhu one day, oh holy man, don't come to Jagannath Puri every year with the devotees. Nityananda agya dilo jao Gauda Deshe. He ordered Nityananda agya dilo, he gave the order. Jao Gauda Deshe, you go to Bengal. Anargal prem bhakti koraho prakashe. Prem bhakti koraho prakasha, you distribute love of Godhead, Krishna bhakti, anargal, without any restriction. So Sajinandan Gauchanda, he had a special concern about the Sankirtan movement in Gauda Desh. He didn't say that about other places. To Komra Brahman, Jari Deka Tarikaha Krishna Amaraga Guru Tara Desh. You deliver this land where you're staying, but Gauda Desh. Mahaprabhu very much concerned about the spreading of the Nam Sankirtan movement in Gauda Desh. And therefore we see so many exalted Antaranga Bhaktagan, internal associates of Mahaprabhu appeared in Gauda Desh. The list is extensive. And even after Mahaprabhu and Antaranga Bhaktagan, Gauranga Shongigan, his immediate associates who all appeared in Gauda Desh, the acharyas of the Gaudiya Sampradaya, it's called Gaudiya. The acharyas, they also appeared in Gauda Desh. All that. Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur, Baladev Vidyabhushan, Shranta Shastri Thakur, Thakur Bhakti Vinod, Srila Prabhupada. This is not coincidental. It's special. Gaud Mandal Bhumi, Jaiba Jani Chintamani. And everything around, even Kolkata, so many holy places. Prabhupada Janmastan, you must have read recently the article where we acquired Prabhupada's Janmastan. And also since last 18 months, you must have been up with the information about the first Gaudiya Math. First Gaudiya Math ever established is in the possession of ISKCON. Ananga Mohan Prabhu has been leading the restoration, as it was in the time of Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And you can read that, how it's nicely described. This Satsarup Goswami, the Lilamrita, he's such an artist. He's such a writer. It's so beautiful, the way he writes. He's seeing, he's describing Narendra Malik is trying, coaxing Prabhupada on the streets there of, you can still visit those streets. It's not different. Now it's a lot more horns blowing. Then was bogey and cart and horse. But he was pulling, come, because Prabhupada was the leader of his friends. And so he wanted Prabhupada to go and see Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur to give his approval. Yes, he's a very nice. Prabhupada reluctant. No, we've seen so many sadhus, 4 or 5 every day. Gaur Mohan would host. Can you imagine? How life has changed. Who in Kolkata now is inviting 4 or 5 mendicants into their home every day and feeding them? Amongst the aristocracy in Kolkata, who is doing that now? You go to the big, the big iron doors. You can't even. So just see how society has changed since 4 or 5, and they were anyone in saffron. And Prabhupada said he even saw some sadhus, they would go home to wife and children in the evening, and in the morning put on saffron cloth and go and beg. But still Gaur Mohan would feed them. What an ideal Vaishnav. Prabhupada said, Shuddha Vaishnav. And he would read Srimad Bhagavatam, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, and chant on his japamala and worship. He wasn't preaching, but he was a Shuddha Vaishnav. And of course our movement is so much influenced by the bhav of Gaur Mohan, our movement, because he had such an influence on Prabhupada. The puja, the Jagannath, Radha Krishna, the bhog, is all what was going on in his home. So Ultadanga Road, and Narendra Mullik, he's pulling, come and see it. And he said, okay, he agreed. And immediately he was taken upstairs. Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur was there. Some brahmacharis met Prabhupada. He was taken upstairs. I prayed to be able, I've never been to that place. I'm praying to go there. That place is so special. And on the roof, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur with a few guests, Narendra Mullik and Abhay, because they were from Vaishnav families, seeing Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, they offered their Dandavat Pranati Namaskar. They full Dandavats. And Prabhupada says that before he was even able to get up and sit, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur said, you are educated young men, you should give your lives to spreading the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in English language. Prabhupada was shocked. How could he say that? Without even any introduction. But how intense was Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur's desire, and therefore we can understand how dear Srila Prabhupada is to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur. In other words, that was always on his mind. That was always on his mind, and any opportunity he would give that order. But only Prabhupada fulfilled that. So how dear is Srila Prabhupada to Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur? But what I find, why I'm bringing this up, is that what I find particularly interesting in that incident is that Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur, he said to Srila Prabhupada, you can find the exact transcript, but he says that the Gaudavani, the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I assume that maybe they were speaking in Bangla or English, I don't know. There were other people there, but Prabhupada knew English, and Narendra Mullik knew English, Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur knew English. Perhaps Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada was preaching in English, but in any case, what he exactly said, that Gaudavani, he said the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English language. All over the world? Is it all over the world? Anyway, he says the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English language. He doesn't specifically mention Srimad Bhagavatam at that time. Doesn't specifically mention Srimad Bhagavatam. He says the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English language. Someone can research and check on that, but as far as I understand, he says the teachings of Lord Chaitanya in English language. However, Prabhupada, he writes specifically in the Bhagavatam purports, he said that I was ordered by my spiritual master to preach Srimad Bhagavatam in English language. So I find that very fascinating. It's like you could say the implication. In other words, Gaudavani is Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada is saying, I was ordered to translate Srimad Bhagavatam and present it in English language. Very fascinating. And also fascinating that, same as we see the Srimad Bhagavatam, we can go to Vyas and Narad. Similarly, it is simply inspirational association. When Narad Muni comes to Vyas, at that time, Vyas is already feeling, end of chapter 4, is described all of the voluminous literary works he produced, but he's still feeling dissatisfaction. And by the divine arrangement, Brahmayan Sarva Bhutani Jantra Rudhani Mayaya, he's wandering, he's controlling the wanderings of all living beings. So at that time Narad came to instruct Vyas Muni. But he doesn't specifically say, we want Srimad Bhagavatam, it's 12 cantos. You should include Srishti Tattva, the Sarga, Bisharga, Manvanta, all of these details. It's not mentioned by Narad Muni. He gives the room for his disciple to take the principles and then expand. He simply says that Ato mahabhaga bhavana mogadrik shuchi sravasatra rato drida brata urukam shakla bandha muktaya shamadina anushmana tadbichestitam. That Mahabhaga, you were so fortunate, Vyas, Narada Vyas. Bhavan, amogadrik, your vision is completely faultless. Suchi, sravasatra, you're pure, you're situated in truth. Shacha rato drida brata, you have such great determination and commitment. Urukam shakla bandha muktaya shamadina anushmara. You meditate, shamadina anushmara, on the details, shamadina anushmara, tad bichestitam, of the variety of tat, of his urukam shakla bandha his pastimes. Narad's order was you meditate on the pastimes as urukrama, and you describe that just by hearing that, his pastimes, namani anantasya jasho kintanyat shrinvanti goyanti grinanti shadaba. Shrinvanti goyanti, by hearing and chanting these pastimes, tadbhag bisharga janataga biprava jasmin proti shlokam abadavatapi. It is not an ordinary literary compilation. Tadbhag, these words, bisharga janataga biplava. It will create a revolution in the sinful lives of the misdirected civilization. Jasmin proti shlokam, each and every syllable of Srimad Bhagavatam has the potency to do that. So it's a very inspirational interaction between Narad Muni and Vyas, and it's not very extensively, administratively detailed. So similarly, the meeting between Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srila Prabhupada, it's all about inspiration. Gaudavani in English language, and Prabhupada inspired, and Prabhupada was so committed to translating Srimad Bhagavatam and providing Srimad Bhagavatam to humanity. That Prabhupada mentions that is his mission. There's one purport there, and I think it's 10. I think it's the Dhritarashtra's Vidura. What is that? That Mahatma Vidura's travels. I think that's 13, chapter 13, and how Vidura came and he induced Dhritarashtra and Gandhari to renounce. And then Sanjay, he's saying, I've been cheated. Dhritarashtra didn't come and didn't say, he's just gone. I've been cheated. And Prabhupada comments in the purport that great souls, they cheat. He said, I was also cheated. Or I forget the exact words, but I was taken out of the householder life. And he says, without this cheating of the great souls, then I would not have been able to undertake the enormous task of translating Srimad Bhagavatam. It's my mission from my guru. Prabhupada has taken that so seriously. I was fortunate to reflect, to visit Sri Radha Damodar Mandir just before the lockdown, actually. Just before the lockdown began. I'd come from abroad and we were meeting in Delhi. And I had a meeting in Delhi, and so I came a couple of days early, and I went to Vrindavan for a couple of days. And I didn't have much time in Vrindavan, but I went to Sanatana Goswami's Samadhi, Rupa Goswami's Samadhi, and Radha Damodar temple. It was in the evening, and I was praying to Prabhupada because we were having a meeting about our the examination standards for the degrees, and we're trying to expand accessibility of that. So I was praying to Prabhupada. And particularly Prabhupada in Radha Damodar Mandir, it is a very special mood. There he's a Brajavasi. And even now it's interesting that Prabhupada in Radha Damodar is not ISKCON. It's not under ISKCON. I find that interesting. It's not under ISKCON. It's not that you have to go through Prabhupada's secretaries and get permission from your regional director in order to see Prabhupada. There's no ISKCON staff. You can just walk in. He's just a Brajabasi. And he's being hosted by the Brajabasis. He doesn't have his huge movement. He's just there with his order of his guru. And that's Prabhupada's mood in Radha Damodar Mandir. He's translating Srimad Bhagavatam. No assistance. And those purports to the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, they are so important to our movement. You could say it's the manifesto of the Krishna consciousness movement, the manifesto, the essential philosophy, ethics, teachings, principles of the Krishna consciousness movement are all there in the first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Because Prabhupada at that time, he was completely focused on writing. Without any other, practically any other seva. He wasn't, initiating, training, supervising management, and traveling. Subsequently, as he was compiling Bhagavatam, he was doing all of those things. And that time, why was he in Radha Damodar temple? to write Bhagavatam. Why was he residing at the lotus feet of Sri Radha Damodar and Rupa Goswami Prabhupada? Why he was doing that? To write Srimad Bhagavatam. It is so empowering. And Prabhupada's first canto is so empowering. The topic of the purport is the Bhagavatam. Right? So we're discussing that. And those purports in the first canto, actually I often reflect how when I became a devotee in 1985, then we had the Bhagavatam paperbacks, BBT Sydney, and you can still find them around. There's a little paperback Bhagavatam. It was about that big, a paperback Bhagavatam. And I'm not sure if they had the trilogy, but it was up to chapter 7, a small paperback of the Bhagavatam. And also the second canto was a small book, paperback book. They're wonderful for book distribution. A small book, but you'd get Maha Big Book points for those because they were Maha Big Books. So those books have been distributed. Now, in that, I got that paperback first. I think it was one of the first books I ever got on the street. That paperback, first canto, chapters 1 to 7. So it affected me. And we were so dull that I was going to the temple for 6 months before I even realized that Krishna is God. It took me, there's God they're talking about. I thought Prabhupada was God in the back. That's, But that Bhagavatam, there was a picture in that Bhagavatam. Of a young man, shaved up, seeker blowing in the wind, what they call bronzed Aussie. If you see them on the beach in Bondi, they're like big guys, and there's lots of surf lifesavers, and it's tanned, like that, Brahman thread, like a big, huge, like a demigod looking person. And he was without shirt, with dhoti. And he was with what's called Clydesdale horses. Clydesdale horses are a type of horse, I think they're from Britain, but they have big, white, furry, around. You'd have Clydesdale horses in America? No. When I was a young kid, the milk used to come to our home and on a cart, a cart pulled by horses. Yeah, and milk bottles. Yeah, I remember that. And they were Clydesdale horses. You'd hear them clip clop, clip clop, clip clop. Big horses. They were used in Australia there for farming and the pre-industrial age. So the devotee was there with the Clydesdale horses and a plough, and he was ploughing up there, northern New South Wales, our property in Murwillumbah, New Govardhan. That picture, that made me become a devotee. Actually, that picture. I thought, this is human life, and this is what inspired me. This is what I want in life. I don't want this industrialized city, urbanization. I want grow food, live a happy life on the land. That picture was there in Srimad Bhagavatam. Why is that picture in there in Srimad Bhagavatam? Because that is the Bhagavat Marg. And I feel that probably strongest you feel that in Prabhupada's first canto purports. Simple living and high thinking. It's so predominant. Prabhupada was so much emphasizing that. He'll describe there that's the Yudhishthira's reign, I think that's chapter 10, the first 6 verses, describing the reign of Yudhishthira Maharaj, how the cows were so happy that they were dripping milk, that the fields were moist with milk, because the cows were appreciated and protected. And all of nature's products were abundantly provided. because the king was dharmic, and he was engaging the people in varnashram dharma and Bhagavad Bhakti. And therefore nature was providing so profusely all of the requirements, and everyone was happy. There was no one was diseased. This is the Bhagavad Siddhanta. This is the Bhagavatam. This is the Bhagavatam's message in conjunction with Bhagavad Bhakti. So that had such a impact on me. Now, when Prabhupada, he came with the Mahamantra and the Sankirtan, and he's giving lectures, he's preaching on Dr. Radha Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada was giving the lectures in 2nd Avenue, New York, First ISKCON Center, Dr. Radha Krishna's Bhagavad Gita. Bhagavad Gita was published later, I think in 1968. It's a wonderful leela. But Prabhupada had the Srimad Bhagavatam. When he had that first canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, that's it. Prabhupada, he was authorized. He was authorized to be the world acharya. And what did he take with him on Jaladuta? His umbrella. Bhadralok chata niye jai. He had his umbrella and his small suitcase. And the boat went from Kolkata down below India, Sri Lanka. Prabhupada talks about, I think he went to city of Colombo. I think he went there, he stopped and went in, and that's all described. And then he came around, and then he came to Kerala, and he stopped in Cochin. And that place has become famous for millennia, because from Cochin, for the first time in the history of the universe, the Srimad Bhagavatam was exported from Bharat Bhumi. At that place. Our devotees did a festival down there actually in 2015, 50 years from the time that Srimad Bhagavatam was exported from Bharat Bhumi. And Prabhupada sailing on the Jaladuta with his chata, with his japamala, and with the order of Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Srimad Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada would personally distribute Srimad Bhagavatam. He would sell Srimad Bhagavatam. He would sell Srimad Bhagavatam. Just like it mentions that when Sachinandan, when he took Jagya Pavitra Anushthan, when he received the sacred thread from Jagannath Mishra, who called all of his Ishta Bandhugan, all of his dear friends and relatives to the house, and he performed somewhere. The ladies were glorifying Krishna. There was the musicians. There were Shanai, Mridangas playing. Festival was going on. Awarded the Jagya Pavitra. And then Bishwambar, Sachidulal, he was going door to door in the Navadip with a cotton shoulder bag and a danda, a brahmachari, like Baman Roop, and he was begging. So it mentions that the wives of Lord Brahma and Lord Shiva, that's Sṛjaty and Rudrani, and they appeared along with all of the Muni Bargugon Grihini, the wives of all the great rishis, like Atreya, like Devahuti and Aditi and other great demigoddesses and wives of great rishis. They appeared, they took births in the form of Brahmanis, or they didn't take birth, but they assumed the forms of Brahmanis in Navadip Dham in order to offer alms to Sachidulal as he would come door to door begging. So Sachinandan, he became a beggar. And his eternal devotees, they appeared as housewives in Navadip to offer him alms. And the great Acharya, the Mahabhagavat, the Mahaprabhu Antaranga Bhakta, Prabhupada, he appeared and he becomes a beggar. He becomes a beggar on the order of his guru and in the mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. And he begs and he sells his books. So how exalted is the position of the book distributor? That even the great eternal Mahabhagavatas, they appear here to take that role. And the Lord himself becomes a beggar. Radha Krishna bol bolore shavai e shikaniye shovnadi fichi neche gunitai. Krishna bole Radha Krishna bolo shange chalo e matro bikachai. Radha Krishna bolo shange chalo. You chant Hare Krishna, you carry on with your life. E matro bikachai. I'm begging from you. The beggar is the topmost. So Prabhupada Brahmananda Prabhu tells the story. It's such a charming story that he gave all his money. He gave all his money to Prabhupada, $500 or something. He was a school teacher, I believe. Gave all his money, had a job, gave all his money to Prabhupada, and sitting there, and then he said, because Prabhupada was distributing the Bhagavatams, and so he said, can I have the books? He gave all his money, $500 donation to Prabhupada. And then he said to Prabhupada, can I have the set of the books? And Prabhupada said, certainly. And Prabhupada hands him the sets of the Bhagavatam, the trilogy, 3 sets, and says, that's $21. Prabhupada was crying when he told that story. That's how merciful is Prabhupada. And how merciful. He'll take, he will. Prabhupada, that's a so wonderful story. So Prabhupada in the Bhagavatam, that was the preaching. Prabhupada, that was, essentially when it boils down to it, Prabhupada, what is our movement? Prabhupada speaking, chanting Hare Krishna and distributing Srimad Bhagavatam. And then in Prabhupada's mission, we're discussing the role of Srimad Bhagavatam in Prabhupada's mission. And then in Mahaprabhu's mission, the Bhagavatam was, at the time of Mahaprabhu, the established authority of Vaishnavism. Krishna tatra, bhakti tatra, rasa tatra, pranto, shab shikailo prabhu, bhagavad shidanto. Mahaprabhu to Rupa Goswami, he mentions, Kaviraj Goswami, that Krishna tatra, bhakti tatra, rasa tatra, pranto. Everything there is to know about Krishna tatra, Bhagavat tatra, bhakti tatra, and rasa tatra. Shab shikailo prabhu, shab shikailo. He taught Rupa Goswami everything, Bhagavat shidanto. He taught Rupa Goswami the conclusion of the Bhagavatam. And that's convenient for us because that's one chapter of Chaitanya Charitamrita, chapter 19. And the whole Bhagavatam conclusion is there. So that should be studied very, as the Bhakti Lota Bij, many things that describe the rarity of a bhakta. Koti mukta. No. Yeah, rarity of a Krishna bhakta. So many things. But let's not go to that. And then Prabhupada, in his introduction to Srimad Bhagavatam, he gives the life sketch of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, the ideal preacher of Srimad Bhagavatam. And the opening paragraph is paraphrase of the verse of Chakravarti Thakur, Aradha Bhagavan Prajesha Tanayo Tat Dhamma Vrindavanam Ramnakachit Upashana Braja Baru Bhaganija Kalpita Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Prem Pumato Maham Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matam Tatra Na Paraha. The 5 principles of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's movement. Prabhupada's paraphrasing in that introduction that Aradha Bhagavan Prajesha Tanayo. Nanda Dulal is the topmost, the Aradha Bhagavan, the most worshipable form of the Lord. Ramnakachirupashana Brajabaru Bhaganija Kalpita, the loving service offered by the cowherd maidens of Braj is the most, Ramnakachi is the Ramaniya Upashana, the most pleasing worship. Srimad Bhagavatam Pramanam Amalam, the Srimad Bhagavatam is the highest evidence in Mahaprabhu's teachings. Prem Pumata Mahan, love of Godhead is the highest goal. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu Matam, this is the opinion of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, tatra na paraha, of which there is no superior opinion. And when we overview Mahaprabhu's teachings. Actually, the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu are found in the Madhya Lila, in his touring and preaching. And Kaviraj Goswami describes Madhya Lila only 6 years of Mahaprabhu's life compared to 24 years in Navadip, 18 years in Nilachal, 6 years. Tar moddhe choi bochor gamon agamon kabu tokin kabu gaur kabu brindavan. In one verse, Kaviraj Goswami summarizes the entire Madhya Lila in one verse. Tar moddhe choi bochor. There were 6 years. He's describing the second half of Mahaprabhu's life, 24 years. He says, Tar moddhe choi bochor gamon agamon. Within that 24 period, there was 6 years which were gamon agamon, going and coming. Kobe Dokin, sometimes he was in South India. Kobe Gold, sometimes he went to Bengal from Puri. Kobe Brindavan and the Brindavan. And they are the 3 places that Mahaprabhu traveled in the Madhya Lila. South Indian tour, attempt to go to Brindavan. He went to Ramkelly, delivered Rupa and Sanatan. And then actual journey to Brindavan. Kabu Dokin, Kabu Gold, Kabu Brindavan, coming and going. And in those travels, Mahaprabhu establishes his teachings and his philosophy. First to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and then he traveled Ramananda Roy, and in Dokhin Bharat, and then the Tattvavadis, the Venkat Bhatta, and then Rup Sanatan, and then Brindavan, and then come back Rup Shikha, Sanatan Shikha, and Prakashananda teachings. That's all in those travels. And in each of those incidences, Mahaprabhu establishes his teachings on the basis of Srimad Bhagavatam, beginning from his deliverance of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, Atmarama Chamunayo, Nigranta Api Urukarmai Kurvanti, Ohoitakim Bhaktim Itam Bhuta Gunohari, when he quotes the verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 7th chapter, text number 10, and convinces Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya that even the liberated souls, the Atmaramas, Kurvanti Ohoitaki Bhaktim, desire, even though they're desireless, Nigranta, they have a desire to Ohoitaki Bhakti, to perform unmotivated devotional service to the Lord, who's Bhuta, who Itam, Bhuta Gunohari, Bhuta Guna, Adbhut Gun, who has extraordinary qualities. Adbhut, Bhuta Gunohari, Adbhut Guna, because he has transcendental qualities. So even the liberated souls are attracted to it. And Mahaprabhu, he convinced Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya after the Bhattacharya had explained that verse in 9 non-devotional ways. And similarly, he explained the same verse to Prakasananda Saraswati 64 times. And we can see in all of the key incidences, Mahaprabhu is preaching from Srimad Bhagavatam and establishing his principles. To Ramananda Roy, Jnane Prayasam Udapasyanamanta Eva, Satmukaridam Bhavadiya Vardum, Shtani Shtita Shudikatam Tanavan Manobre Yai Prayasho Ajita Jito Api Ashichash Trilokam. That he can become conquered even though he's not conquerable by anyone within the 3 worlds. He could become conquered by the process of humbly submitting oneself to hearing Shtanishta Shrutikatam Tanovan Manobi, his glories from the Satmukaritam, from the lips of a pure devotee. Mahaprabhu accepts this suggestion of Ramananda. This is Shuddha Bhakti. And of course teachings to Rupa and Sanatan, so much established on Srimad Bhagavatam. So some thoughts today we've shared with you on the importance of Srimad Bhagavatam in Srila Prabhupada's mission, in Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission. Hare Krishna. Janmashtami Prabhu. I'm leaving time for questions because my dear friend and mentor Janmashtami Prabhu is sitting here, and I know that he'll have questions. He's such a highly stimulated Vaishnava that he'll be thinking many things, and we'd love to hear his thoughts.
You were speaking about how Rupa Goswami was Prabhupada was just focused when he was at the Radha Damodar temple in writing. And he expressed to some of his senior disciples, shortly after he started the movement, that the entire vision for developing ISKCON came about when he was at the Radha Damodar temple. The whole vision for pushing the movement on, amazing. The depth of his meditation there is just incredible. And then there's that one pastime where I've heard it from different sources slightly differently, but then Rupa Goswami, Prabhupada was sitting in his kitchen, and every day he would look out at Rupa Goswami's samadhi. And then one day, Rupa Goswami came to him in a vision. There's actually a painting of this. I used it in a PowerPoint presentation once, where Rupa Goswami said to him, Swamiji, just go to the West and preach. Don't worry about anything, because I'll be right there with you. And it was like, it's so profound, you know, the depth of his commitment to, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur and Rupa Goswami and Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, just like amazing. What he was able to go through and keep going, you know, like just even in the Jaladuta, the 2 heart attacks, and my God. But that was the, Prabhupada felt so close to Rupa Goswami, so he was guided, that's why, the Nectar of Instruction is my favorite book.
We're getting your association after intense absorption in Upadeshamrita. Right?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Prabhu. Question, comment? Thank you very much. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Shama Beta Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai.